Hi, and welcome back to the Elite podcast. Today we're going to be talking all about video games. I know this is a topic we've been waiting for. So we do have a guest here, Mr. Marshall. He works at our Elite. He's a CTE teacher for game and animation. And then we also have Janelle, who's a guest as well. I think everyone remembers Janelle. And then we always have our podcast group as well. And so, Mr. Marshall, would you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Sure. Quick introduction. My name is Mr. Marshall. I do teach game development animation here. My my educational background, I got a bachelor's degree from the University of Laverne where I studied multimedia. And after that, I went to pursue a master's degree in interactive computer graphics technology, which deals with, everything that's a computer graphic on the screen that you can change into a game level or a character or whatever the case may be. So I have a pretty strong academic background in game development, and I've worked for Nintendo in the past as well as a brand ambassador. So that's something that I'm also happy to share my experience with.
That is so cool. And I think especially the part with Nintendo, like everyone knows that company, and then you say you work
Hmm.
there. So I think
Hmm.
that's just so
I
cool.
did. Yeah.
Yeah. And then our first topic, I just want to ask everyone, what is your favorite video game and why?
Ooh, that's a really tough question, as we were kind of talking about this before the meeting officially started. But as a game developer, I've played almost any video game you can imagine. I played a lot, whether that was on console or on PC. I didn't start playing games on PC until I started building PCs after college. But I would say that my favorite video game, that if I really think back, if I was stranded on an island and I could only play one game for the rest of my life, that would probably be Super Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube. That would be my favorite game.
Oh,
Hmm.
and why is it?
Well, it would be because the game was, it's when it was developed by HAL Laboratories, it was not intended to be a competitive game. It was supposed to be a party game where you just play with friends casually. But the game, the way it was developed, it had so many quirks in the code and just in the systems that it made it a very competitive game. There's a lot of advanced techniques that you can learn, and in fact, the game came out, I think, over 13 years ago at this point, but people are still discovering techniques that no one has ever done before, and it's adding fuel to that competitive fire. And the game is still being played for, you know on a grand scale. So I think the game is just, I figured if I was on a stranded island, I could probably discover new techniques after playing for like 10 years or something. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a never ending game. That's what would be
Exactly.
the best. Like there's some games that just end. And you can never
Hmm.
like even the stories just there's nothing else to it. But anyone can answer this question also. So like if you want
Yeah.
to. I don't even know what my favorite game would be. I think I play a lot of RPGs. I don't play like first person shooters or anything like that. I play more also I play a lot of Genshin and
Mm.
like those types of games as well. And I'm more of a watcher than playing. So I tend to watch a lot
Mm.
more. But does anyone else have a game that they would like to mention?
I have a couple of games. So right now, the only console I have, and probably my mom will be able to give me, just because she's a bit strict on video games, is a Nintendo Switch. So right now, probably my favorite video games are Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Breath of the Wild. Zelda Breath of the Wild is really insanely good. And the new Tears of the Kingdom is just even better. I say that the sequel is probably just hands down like one of the best Zelda games in the entire series, in my opinion. But those are my favorite games.
Yeah, we also have Katarina in the chat. She said that right now she's playing Hogwarts Legacy.
I saw someone had
That
mentioned
sounds really
Portal 2. I think it was Natalya. Portal is one of the best game franchises ever. It's like a puzzle game, really, where you have to like shoot portals and you have to like basically navigate these levels, and it's like a puzzle game. Um, Valve is the developer of Portal, and I think Valve, in my opinion, is like the Disney of, well, maybe Nintendo is the Disney of game development, but Valve is just an incredible studio. They actually also they run the platform Steam, which is like where you buy games for PC. So Portal's great.
I feel like for long drives and you're like just bored, there's no internet, the best thing to play would be maybe one of the non-internet ones would be Paper IO because it's satisfying and it takes no effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Paper Mario is a great franchise. Actually, the Thousand Year Door for the GameCube, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is one of the best games of all time. If you guys, as gamers, I highly encourage you to go see if you can find a GameCube at a thrift store, or see if you can find an old console and actually start collecting games from older consoles and try to play them, because they're very fun. A lot of older games are the best, in my opinion. I know
I want
they're
to share.
newer.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, go
My
ahead.
favorite game is Paper Mario. I love the Paper Mario. Like, I've only played a couple of them, but I know Thousand Year Door will be coming out on the online subscription, so I'm glad I'll get to play it. And I also love like the Yoshi's Crafted and Woolly World, so I'm thinking I like the craft kind of design because those like are my favorite games.
Mm.
For me, I'm not really big into video games, but I do like the Google Doodles. They're kind of video games in a way. I like Google Doodles, and I also play Super Mario Brothers with my cousins.
I have a plane flying over me, but I was going to add to Janelle's comment. Did I pronounce that correct, Janelle? So Yoshi's Island for the Game Boy Color, or I think it was Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Color, is one of my favorite games too. Like, such a fun game for the Game Boy. If you guys know what a Game Boy is, it's funny.
Throwing it way back.
It's funny because now I'm only 26, but I'm feeling like I'm really old because describing like a Game Boy is almost like ancient technology at this point. Like, so
Welcome to old age, sir. Yes. I'll age myself right now too. So favorite games like of all time. I'm gonna say two: Super Mario Brothers 3 and DuckTales for the NES, which came out as a remastered version on Xbox and PlayStation and all that. Amazingly fun games. I absolutely love them. And the replayability. That's what I remember from my childhood. Like, hey, going to Toys R Us and go into that window to pick up Super Mario Brothers 3 and just playing it. It was just so amazing. Like, wow, I get to turn into a raccoon. It was fantastic. And I mean, I've been a Nintendo fan ever since. Nintendo's been the system I've always had until now. Now it's PS5 right now, but I plan to get a Switch just to have it again. So yeah.
That sounds really cool. I remember when I used to have, when I was like little, they had the Nintendo 3DS. Like the one, I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. The one that was like you fold in half and you open up, and like I had one. I lost it. It was so sad. But I remember I used to go to GameStop and we would go and we would buy like the little cards that go inside. And that was like,
yeah, the 3DS was a fantastic system. In my honest opinion, I think that the 3DS is better than the Switch. If I'm being honest, I feel like go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I just disconnected, so I don't know like where I cut off or anything.
I think we heard what you were saying about owning a 3DS, but you lost it and that.
Oh yes. Back when
Yeah, I owned like 3DSs in my lifetime. And for whatever reason, I think I was too young to know the value of a 3DS because I just kept getting them from family. I literally sold all of the 3DSs that I had. And as an adult, I'm trying to find one, but since they're discontinuing the eShop, the prices have skyrocketed. So the prices of the 3DS is now way more than what it usually is.
I know, and it's so hard to find another one. Like you would have to
Yeah.
go like off on like eBay or something, I believe. So like
yeah.
I only had one, and I was like in kindergarten, and my parents got it for me. I remember even like showing it to show and tell. It's like my prized possession.
Absolutely.
I had a red 3DS.
The 3DS was cool because they had the Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I got it from my mom, and then I got a carry case from her, and I got a few games. Me and my uncle Michael used to stay up and just play that game.
Yes, I think another reason it's so good is because it's so like small, but not like too small. You could take it everywhere with you. Also, it's a little
The
smaller than the
cool
Switch.
One of the cool gimmicks about the 3DS that I really enjoyed was the parallax effect, where they had the 3D that you could turn up. Remember, where you could turn up the 3D and then it would like make the games look like they were three-dimensional. It worked better for some games than others because some developers didn't know how to make games for it that way. But like the ones that did have the parallax effect, it looked really cool. I mean, it was a cool gimmick for sure. The 3D on the 3DS. Yeah.
Yes, now I have to look for. I still live in the same house, so it has to be somewhere here. So, but that moves. I'm going to move on to the next topic about why do you guys play video games?
Well, go ahead, Seth. I think Seth wants to kick it off.
Well, I tell people that I play video games for just to release stress, even though while I'm playing video games, I play Fortnite, which is a competitive game. Every single time I die, I do release my stress on my desk. But other than that, I play video games just because it's fun, and I'm not like a casual gamer. I like to play video games more on like kind of a competitive side, where I'm like starting to get better progressively, and I want to become a professional. But obviously, I don't think I'm gonna become a professional if I break my desk. But I play video games for that.
Interesting point. There's definitely a time where I was the same way. I used to play, games competitively. I would compete at Smash Bros tournaments for college. I was an esports captain. Won a few tournaments and stuff like that. But for me, I feel like the root of it was a social thing for me because in my family, I would have cousins that would invite me over and we'd play Donkey Kong Country on the N64 and we'd play Smash. And basically, it was just a social thing. And it was really just a way to connect, especially because I actually am an only child. So for me, going to play video games with cousins was like one of the best ways for me to bond with them. And then that carried on into high school when we had the 3DSs and you could play Smash. You could challenge anyone right at lunch. That was really fun for me. And also for me too, especially as I'm getting older, I think video games, quick summary, is more so for me, it's about the experience, it's about the atmosphere, it's about the mood of the game, right? There are so many wonderfully crafted games that tell such immersive stories that just really are captivating. It's almost better than reading a book in some ways, right? Because in a book, you can control the pacing, but in a game, the pacing kind of comes to you and you kind of get carried away on this experience. It depends on the game, right? Some games are more free form, but that's why I like games. It's really just some games are just just replayable forever. It's like the perfect book. Just play it forever.
Yeah, definitely. And in the chat, Katarina says that she plays video games because some of them calm her and entertain her in different ways, and they give her something to do. And nothing else suits them. And I play video games because of the clicking. I like clicking. That's fun for me.
The clicker games are absolutely super satisfying.
I like playing video games because they also calm me down. Even though in some video games I do play competitively in Super Smash Bros. Then I'm a bit stressed. I'm not as calmed down, but I also play them because they give me a lot of inspiration for they give me a lot of inspiration for songs or like other stuff too. Besides just like, oh, I like to play video games because they calm me down, but they inspire me to do so many other things like creating my own video games. Like right now, I'm in Mr. Marshall's game development course, so I've been playing video games just to so that they can inspire me to create my own video games and it's just I find lots of inspiration from different games.
That's awesome.
I like
That's
I
really
like all
nice.
the reasons. Oh, sorry. I like all the reasons that you guys said. To me, I think I play video games because it feels good when you beat a difficult level, and when you figure out a challenge, it encourages you, and I think kind of builds courage and strength because you're like, hey, I did that, especially when something's difficult. Sometimes when I have a hard day, I'll play Mario Kart to see if I can beat the level, and then that makes me happier. So I think that's why I enjoy video games.
Great point.
Nice. Yeah,
It,
I'll jump in real quick then. I play video games for the experience of it. I love games that give you like different ways to control and different ways to like explore the narrative. Best example I can give you is the original, not the original, the Prince of Persia games that came out as the remake to the original, but not the ones right now. Where you could like reverse time. Like you could jump off of a bridge and then you can be like, oh, that didn't work. And then you use your hourglass and your reverse time. I love seeing innovation in the controls. Because I mean, to me, it's creating a video game it's an art form. To make the user experience that enjoyable is the goal. And but also I mindlessly play games too. I downloaded the Invincible cell phone game just to pass time when you got a minute to go. You're like, okay, I'm gonna play Invincible. But when I really want to dive into something, it's action adventure and of course fighting games. Tekken 8 being my main game right now.
Very cool.
well, yeah. Some games, just like how you're saying, they have such a so much world building that you have to be so dedicated to some of them. But like, I play games because they give you a chance to kind of escape reality in a sense, because you get to pretend sometimes that you're a different person if you're playing a character in first person, and you can see and you can design it and you can do things that you can't do in reality. Like you can't like fly, or you don't have powers or those things, but in video games you can, and it feels like you can do things that you normally can't, like how Janelle was saying, gives you more courage as well. That's why.
Video games
just
also
like-
help you learn better, because I know some video games like I think there's one, I can't remember the name, but there's another one. It's called Wordscapes, and it helps you to build up your vocabulary and helps you focus.
Oh yeah, I love Wordscapes. It's so much fun. I mean, and back in my day, we had something called Brain Age that you played on a Nintendo DS, and I loved Brain Age. It was like Sudoku, it was a whole bunch of brain teasers, and then it would tell you like how old your brain is. But we see a lot of that with our cell phone games now. There's ways to, like you said, learn and to grow and to expand your mind. I think that's a fantastic way.
Also with exercise too. I had the Wii Sports when I was younger, and I play all types of sports. I wasn't able to play like because I didn't have those types of things like tennis and those, but I was able to play from my house like that. So I think that was really cool as well. Oh, and then our next topic is going to be about what's everyone's favorite console and why.
Go ahead, Seth. I think you've been starting us off pretty strong here.
Well, my favorite console, personally, if it had to come down to a console and a PC, I would probably choose a console because most PCs have like a bit more competitive games. I would say. I wouldn't say like they don't have a bunch of like story playing like role plays. Yeah, they have a lot of role plays, but like consoles have a lot of original games too, which that's what I would like. But I sure would like to have like a better like FPS and stuff like that gives you a boost in competitive gaming. But I would go with a console, and for my console, it would be a PS5.
I know that one's a popular one for sure.
Interesting point you made there, Seth, because consoles. I grew up playing console games. They were just more accessible than a PC, right? An actual personal computer was a lot harder to come by than just spending like what $300 on a GameCube or $200 on a DS or whatever the case was. But in my opinion, I think what we're going to see is PCs, personal computers are going to take over the console market completely because consoles are struggling to keep up with PCs just because of the amount of customization you can do with games on PC, the access to, like mods, and just you can actually make games on PC. You can't make games on a console. So it's just, I think that we're going to see the overtaking of console gaming by PCs, unfortunately, in the future. But who knows? Maybe we'll have console themed PCs, like because that's what basically a console is, just a computer. That's what it is. It's just like the only claim to it, the only real thing, like you said, it's the library of games. So PlayStation has an exclusive library of games that only come out on the PlayStation. But even now, they're pushing some games to PC. So,
and also like with the PC, I learned a while back you can even hook up like a controller if you want to. So it's basically like the same thing. And also like depending on like what you play with, it could be a bigger screen. I only have a PC to play with right now, like currently. I do have some older things like an Xbox, but like an older one from when I was little that I don't use anymore. But so PC, I can play any game I want to. Yes. So I agree. And then,
oh, sorry.
Well, go ahead.
I was gonna say I like a control console or console. Sorry, because I actually get to use my fingers to do it. It's like more fun in a way.
The only thing is like I'm so used to not using a controller, and then I started switching over to a controller, and I was like, oh, I have to learn everything over again. So, but I think for me personally, I really like Nintendo. So I really love the Nintendo 3DS. I mean the 3DS. But and I really want a Switch. That's like my dream console to have. So is there anyone else who'd like to say?
Me, I have one. Sorry.
Because I do know there's some games that you can only play specifically like on the Switch, I believe so. I may be wrong. And so I think it would be really cool to have one.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you made a great point. You can connect any game console controller to a PC and play that game with that controller, right? I mean, the PC is, when games are developed, they're developed on a computer and then ported to a specific console. So I think in the future, but I agree. The GameCube controller is like a perfect instrument, in my opinion. I love the GameCube controller. It always feels good. But
For me, I have a bunch of consoles, but my favorite console would be a console that I got personally made for myself, that my uncle that built for me. It's an Xbox One, but he bought a broken Xbox Minecraft console and got a new Xbox, and then just play everything onto the Xbox Minecraft to the Xbox One. That's my favorite console, but right now I'm playing the Xbox Series S, and I've been playing Fortnite, which is because I spent too much money in Fortnite to not play it.
I see we have some in the chat as well saying Annabelle's in between a Nintendo Switch and the PS5. And Xavier said that Xbox controllers are really nice. And in the Nintendo Switch, Annabelle said you can either play on the screen or you could play on portable. And then Natalya said that she's tried to play Hollow Knight on PC instead of console, and it's harder because it's just gone. You need to change it. But I did want to ask a question because I may be wrong, but because we're just talking about games. So do they still come out with games?
no.
No. Okay. Because I just remember that from when I was very little, so I'm not sure if just I'm not in the loop or if they just.
The Nintendo Wii is probably the greatest home console of all time. Absolutely legendary library of games, but it was succeeded by the Wii U, which did not do as well commercially, and then the Nintendo Switch came out to replace the Wii U, which is doing fine. So
I want to say that, oh, sorry. My favorite brand is Nintendo. That's the only brand I've ever played. I think I had an Xbox when I was really little, but not enough to remember it. But I think out of the games or the consoles I've played with in Nintendo, I like the Switch the best because, like what someone mentioned earlier, I can put it on the TV and play Mario Party with my family, or take it on the go and play Animal Crossing by myself. And also, I recently got a refurbished Wii U and a Wii because I didn't get to play some of those games, and I have to say that the disc skips sometimes, and then your game's interrupted. So that's another good feature about the Nintendo Switch is you don't have to deal with that.
Going back to the PS world, I feel that the PS4 is it's a little older, a couple years older than the PS5, but it has that great quality of having original stuff in there. I feel that the 3D stuff kind of started coming and forming shape from the fourth one, and then the third one was still kind of pixelated and everything. But then the fourth one made a big outcome with it being 3D and there's no pixels and everything.
I like Janelle's point really quick that she said she went back to buy some of these old consoles because that's what a lot of developers do. They go back to experience these older games, understand the art style. Why does this game play the way it does, right? So that they can implement that into newer games. And some of the best newer games call back to those older mechanics and art styles from that time. So that's a good.
I used to think that older consoles they wouldn't work at all, or like that they're not worth anything. Then I talked to my dad, and he's like, "No, those are worth a lot of money because they're not made anymore." So they're just. I see people are talking a lot about Animal Crossing in the chat. I think Animal Crossing is very like aesthetic pleasing. It's very like pretty and those things. The graphics. I realized that a lot of newer games, the graphics are so synonymous. I can't talk. Sorry. They're almost like a movie. They look very nice and they move very easily. Just
Very true.
Yeah, I tried to go back and play an old game, and it shocked me how different the pixels were and how different things functioned. So it definitely is, I think, a little smoother now, and it's more enjoyable in some ways because you can see more details.
Absolutely. Some games age incredibly well. Some games you go back and play them and it's like, oh my gosh, how was this made 13 years ago? You know what I'm saying? But other games, it's like, you can see where it was great, but you go back and they're like, oh my gosh, this looks totally different. So yeah, it's a good point.
Like GoldenEye. I mean, GoldenEye was
Sure.
great when it came out, and then you look at it now and you're like, oh boy. Like, they were like polygon heads, and we're like, yeah, that was the best thing ever.
Yeah. But low poly is still popular. That low polygon, a lot of the things about older development was they used to have those low polygon character models and the really pixelated resolution because there was a console limitation. The consoles could not handle anything more. They didn't have enough memory, enough data stored on the console to perform any better. So that was a limitation. But you know what they say about limitation? It's the mother of creativity. So nowadays, people are going back and exploring those older styles because of the nostalgia.
And then I'm gonna move on to like the next question I did have was just, but what do you guys think is the best console? So now what's your favorite? But what do you think is the best one that's been made so far?
I think the PS was the best console so far. PS4 specifically, because it was kind of like the start of everything, like I had pointed out. And so it kind of transitioned the PS world into another 3D world.
Mine would probably be the Xbox 360. My childhood game, a game that I had to start off with, was the Xbox 360. Then when I got like 4, I got my Xbox One.
I'm still gonna say the Nintendo 3DS. So just because it just holds so much for me. But what does anyone else say?
Oh, I got one. And Mr. Marshall might know. I'm not sure if anybody else will, but The Dreamcast, I think, was the best system ever made, and I feel like it was underrated. It had such great graphics. It had that memory unit, like this weird screen thing that went onto your controller. And I used to play Power Stones like all the time. I loved it. It just didn't have a big shelf life. But I felt like it transitioned the gaming world into what we have now, because then you have the PlayStation 2 and all that. And now it's what everybody has now. But back then they were something different. Like you couldn't get that on Nintendo. You couldn't get that on the Genesis.
Nope. And actually, I do know exactly what console you're talking about. Dreamcast was Jet Set Radio, all these fantastic games that came from the Dreamcast. But everyone was too busy focusing on the battle between Nintendo and, was it Sega Genesis? Or what was it?
It was a PlayStation. I think it was a PlayStation 1.
It was a PlayStation 1 and the Nintendo, Super Nintendo. Which one was it?
Was it the Super Nintendo or was it GameCube?
No, it was the GameCube. It was the GameCube.
I think it was GameCube. And then you're right. It got overshadowed.
Completely overshadowed. Yeah.
Look in your history books, kids. Like you see the Dreamcast in there.
Yeah, the Dreamcast is a fantastic console for sure. Very cool, very vibrant games, visually appealing. Jet Set Radio, I'd recommend if you guys have time, go look up Jet Set Radio. One of the best.
I never heard that in so long.
Yeah, best game.
So much fun.
Like everyone just gets quiet because I don't understand what you guys are talking about, so I would have to go search up everything afterwards. So
I don't worry. Yeah, I'm a dinosaur, so yeah, like the systems that I grew up with, like they're very different, but I still stay up with the times, and like right now the PS5 to me is the best one you can buy like at a store right now. PS5 is amazing. It can do everything, and somebody had mentioned like the cinematic qualities. I mean, geez, it's like you're playing a movie. It's absolutely fantastic. So that's my 2 cents on like best right now, and then of course best all time.
I see Annabelle looked it up. So we have to put a picture somewhere so everyone just edit it in the picture.
We'll put in little screenshots and whatnot so people know what we're talking about, and we'll put like an archaeologist dusting off a Dreamcast.
That's funny.
If no one else has anything else to say about the best console, so what do you guys think is the worst console that has ever been made?
I got one. I got one. It's the Virtual Boy. It's the Virtual Boy.
It was Nintendo's first attempt.
It was, and it was this hideous red thing that went onto your head, but had like a tripod to stand on, and all the graphics were black and red. And it was possibly the stupidest system I've ever seen. I mean, TurboGrafx 16 existed, and I would still say the Virtual Boy was the worst for me.
Go look up the Virtual Boy. You'll be stunned.
I'll stop that.
Nintendo wants to bury that one forever. It was pretty bad. I never played one. Have you played one before? Have you tried one? Really? Wow.
Back in the day, Kmart had those on the demo.
Oh,
so
wow. That's
crazy. After church on Sunday, head over there and play that, and then realize like I'm gonna go back to playing Super Mario World.
That's wild. That's cool.
Oh yeah, I just searched it. It looks a little scary though. It looks like it will almost attack you, but like I mean,
yeah,
it was bad.
It's pretty bad. Wow, that was like the perfect answer, actually. Okay, that was the perfect answer.
I see no one else has experienced like any bad consoles, really. But Natalie said that. Am I saying? Is it Natalya?
Natalya. Yeah.
Yes, I've been saying Natalie, haven't I? I do it automatically by accident. I'm sorry. But so you said that there are games. It just moved to chat. Okay, there are games that were not really built for the Switch. Are those the ones that are saying that were not as good? And then said shout out to Overwatch 2 on Switch. Oh, then someone put in the chat the picture as well.
Iman put that in. Thank you. Oh man. Yeah. That's what nightmares look like, everybody. Virtual Boy.
Yeah, it looks like it will hurt you if you put it on.
It will. It'll kill your time. You'll be like, why did I waste my time looking into this red and black horrible, horrible creation?
It would give you
I
nightmares.
think the Go ahead.
Go ahead, Seth.
Oh, I think the worst console would be probably the PS Go.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The PS Go was a horrible seller, and I don't really think it would be a good console today either. So
Another good answer.
I feel that nowadays everything is so perfect, it's hard to find something that's wrong.
Agreed. Yeah, because when you look at our like the big systems out right now, so yeah, PlayStation, you have the Xbox, you have the Switch. There's no fault in them right now. Like they run pretty smooth, and depending on your like I mean, if you're like a big family game person, I mean, Nintendo's perfect for you. It has so many games that you can do. And if you're more of that hardcore gamer, you have a very powerful PlayStation and Xbox on the market right now. You don't really have a dud right now. And it's hard to think of ones besides what was mentioned, honestly. I do feel like TurboGrafx 16 never picked up. I felt like, it was a one-trick pony. Again, look that one up with Bonk's Adventure. And then, I mean, look at all the handhelds. We've had really nice ones. We've had the Game Boy, Game Boy Advance. We've had like we said earlier, the 3DS. There's not a lot of misses.
Well, it could, like going on what you're saying, it could be just that right now, but in the future, we might look back on it and think that our consoles are not the best. So I think it's just as we progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We're gonna have those consoles that are just like pretty much our glasses in the future, and we're gonna be like, oh wow, remember back when we had that Oculus thing and you had to put it on your head, and then
Oh, and I did want to ask, because we were talking about Nintendo a little bit. Mr. Marshall, would you tell us a little bit about your time with Nintendo and what you did there?
Absolutely. So it's actually funny. When I first in high school, I was an avid. I had to give a presentation on a dream job, and my presentation I talked about being a spokesperson for Nintendo, and I kind of set that goal. I would call it an evergreen goal, a goal that I never thought I'd be able to accomplish. But sure enough, after I finished my bachelor's degree, I was applying for jobs, and I saw there was an opening for a Nintendo brand ambassador. So I figured I'd apply for the opening. And sure enough, I got a call back. And before I knew it, I was, had a Nintendo shirt. I still have them in my closet, two Nintendo employee shirts. They sent me a little merchandise, gift bundle. My job was primarily to be a client-facing representative in stores. So I would go to Best Buy, I would go to Target, and I would basically go and troubleshoot some of the catalog issues. So if there were games that were on the shelves that were not supposed to be on the shelves at that street date, I would go in and make sure that the management knew that. I would work a lot with the digital planograms. A planogram is basically an in-store catalog, and I would program those to make sure that they had the right merchandise. It was really just a client-facing role, and also a very merchandise-heavy role, making sure that everything was in stock that was supposed to be in stock. And actually working there, I helped ship a few games. I helped ship Luigi's Mansion, the Luigi's Mansion game that came out for the Switch. I helped ship the Kingdom Hearts game, the rhythm game that came out for the Switch. And it was a fun role. It was a technical role because of the troubleshooting, and it was also a very educational role because I learned how a big business operated, and I was able to teach customers, about Nintendo products. So hardware and software, talking about which consoles were, to buy for the season and stuff like that. And that's where I actually really found my love for education and my love for teaching. Teaching people about video games. So yeah, that's primarily what I did when I was with Nintendo.
Well, that just sounds amazing, especially so like that you thought about it when you're in high school, and then it happens. I think that's so like inspiring for us to hear as well, to know that we could actually have like the jobs that we think about. And
Absolutely.
Luigi's Mansion, my sister loves it. It's her favorite game. Yeah, she's like she loves Luigi and like her favorite character. And I think they're making a new one too, like Luigi Mansion, a newer one. I don't remember really well.
Possibly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then I did want to move more into like how you're talking about like in the game in the company, there's more than just playing the games. They have to do so much more in it. And so
Oh, yeah.
that's why I wanted to move to like what does video games look like at Elite specifically? How do we talk about?
Absolutely. So, you know, video games are very technical, very, very technical. As a matter of fact, video games, believe it or not, are some of the most complicated pieces of software that exists in our world. Games include so much engineering. It's ridiculous. When it comes to scripting, so many different programming languages that you can learn to make a specific kind of game. A lot of the animation technology is used across the workforce, not just for games. Basically, what's important to note is when I teach game development, right? And I have friends that work at studios that produce content for Disney Plus and the Food Network and PlayStation and so on. What's so important to remember is that when I'm teaching you game development, especially if you're in my class, you're going to be learning skills that really expand. They go over, it goes over so much of the industry. Architecture, when you're creating a game level, when you're creating buildings for players to go through and to explore, that's architecture. Unreal Engine 5 is a popular game engine that's used for real estate. It's used for the film industry. When it comes to VFX, when you see Spider-Man shooting a web in a film, that's CGI. That CGI technology is used. It's created in a game engine or software similar to that. Even The Mandalorian. I know we have a teacher here that's a big fan of The Mandalorian. A lot of The Mandalorian was filmed with Unreal Engine 5. Like they had a set that basically incorporated graphics from Unreal Engine 5, and the actors were on set with that in the background. As a matter of fact, well, basically that's there's so much to say, but in reality, it's software engineering, VFX for TV, films, just so much. Music design. If you love music, there's something for you when it comes to music. There's scripting for music in games where you have to be really good at music. There's just something for everyone. It's multimedia. It encompasses every aspect of technology. Video games literally cover almost every aspect of modern technology to come into one package, if that makes sense. It's really cool. It's called media convergence, actually, when all technologies come together in that way, or they, from the past, and it's really fascinating. So yeah, mobile apps use game engines to be produced. It really just depends on the type of project, really.
It does sound really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like there's so much in it, so much to talk about. But what academic skills specifically do we learn from video games? I wanted to ask.
Okay, so specifically, let's start off with the big one, software engineering. So in my class, I teach primarily the verse programming language, which is for Unreal Engine, C#, which is mainly used in Unity, and Lua. So Lua is another big programming language. There's a version of Lua that's being used right now. It's called PyTorch, and it's being used for AI programming for like Tesla vehicles and stuff like that. So all these programming languages they converge at some point. It's kind of like learning a human language, right? If you can speak Spanish, you can. If you're learning English, there are some similarities. So when you learn one programming language, they kind of meld together, and you can kind of understand the form and function of how that works for others. Also, engineering technology, when it comes to 3D modeling, we're creating 3D characters from scratch with a default cube. We're using extrusion, scaling, and rotating to create complex props and characters and environments that are also done for 3D modeling when it comes to 3D printing, when it comes to engineering design. If you're modeling an invention that someone has made in an engineering firm, you're going to be using 3D modeling to do that. So that's technology that's used across the industry. And then again, animation, animation is used in the medical field for medical animations and, obviously TV and film, but the academic skills really just come down to like engineering technology, like 3D modeling, learning, and also just learning different software. One thing that my students are finding in my class is that they use Blender and Autodesk Maya last semester, which are fantastic 3D software for modeling and animation. Now that they're learning game engines, they're finding similarities between a game engine software and an animation software, right? And then that will also, if they go into other industries like interior design, they'll use software like SketchUp, or if they go into solid modeling engineering with Fusion 360 or there's others, right? They'll learn that they're similar. You know what I'm saying? They've got they've got the X, Y, and Z axis, the 6 degrees of freedom, and a 3D software, a viewport, it really just encompasses all of engineering, if I'm being honest. And then it goes into film and television and entertainment as well. Web design, programming languages that we learn are very similar to web design programming languages. So it's very encompassing, if that makes sense.
It does.
I was going to add
sorry.
one more thing that it just came to mind. It just came to mind. Artificial intelligence in games. I say this all the time. In aviation, in video games, artificial intelligence has been around since the earliest examples of video games. For example, pathfinding in Pac-Man, when you've got the ghosts chasing you around the screen. Generative AI is making it more of a buzzword nowadays, but people who've played video games in the past, they've heard of AI before, right? That's nothing really too new, but the technology that's used to power our Nintendo Switches, our Xboxes and PlayStations, those NVIDIA graphics cards, those graphics cards have AI technology built into them that makes our games run better and look better. So over time, our games are becoming better. They're having better performance and they're looking better, and that technology is also affecting the rest of the world. There's an AI that just came out called Sora AI. It's still in the testing phases, but that is a video generation artificial intelligence. So you can type in a prompt and it'll come up with the video. That model is being trained off of Unreal Engine. So Unreal Engine is an engine that's used specifically for photorealistic assets, like Mandalorian. Think of the most crystal clear video game you've ever seen. It was probably made with an Unreal Engine, right? So yeah, the technology is, everything in video games is very, all in one, really. That's the way I can think of it.
Well, it sounds so interesting and so cool. It makes me want to take one of your classes now.
Thanks.
But and it seems like you're so passionate about this as well. Everything, and it sounds so interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I wanted to ask also the students, what does video games for you look like at Elite for like the classes you take? I do know some of your students are here, so they should be able to answer this.
Xavier and Tiana are some of my best students.
It's fun to put Tiana on the spot. So yeah. She's been in my classes before too, and I'm always like, Tiana. She's like, my camera's not working. Yes, it is. My microphone's not working. Yes, it is.
Sorry. It's been really fascinating of how each program has been working out. I've learned from Nolan's classes of how games used to like become more like from the whole Game Boy parts of everything, and then to now I've learned and then from Mr. Ocean or from Marshall's class, I've learned of how to actually create like the games from like low poly to actual color and everything. So I'm gonna make a video game maybe soon. But yeah, I'm getting the characters on the papers and then just creating them all on internet and yeah.
Well, that sounds really cool. I feel like I said that a couple times today already, but everything about video games is just very cool as well. And so I think if no one else has anything to say, we can start closing it up now, since I do know we went over time. It's just with video games, you can go over time for a very long time, I believe. So,
Oh, I
if
saw a
nothing, I'll hand
comment
it
right
over to
now.
Elite.
Let me read that comment real quick. I saw Natalya put, they're life-changing, to be honest. It really expands your view on how much effort is put into video games. Well, before the class, I would mindlessly play the game with no thought. Overall, game development class is super great. So thank you for sharing that.
One quick tidbit. It helps you if you look at a game and you're like, how did they do that? How did they get that system to work? How did they? And then you start thinking, it's just, yeah, it's fantastic.
And I see Xavier wants to give his opinion on the classes as well.
First of all, the classes are very inspiring and fun because, like Mr. Marshall just said, when I look at games, I start to realize more like I actually kind of know like how they're created. I'm still learning the ins and out of it, but probably my favorite part of Mr. Marshall's game development course is definitely the 3D modeling, being able to create these different low poly characters. Right now I'm learning low poly, but being able to create these different characters is just so fun. And it just makes me realize like how fun it is to actually make the game and just to play it. Like both sides of video gaming, it's just fun. Like just making it and playing it is fun. So definitely it's a great course, and I suggest if people are interested in game development, they should definitely take it.
Yes, it sounds like an amazing class so far we hear. Right? And well, thank you everyone for coming as well. And thank you for everything. And I'm going to give it off to Elisa so she can give us our outro.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Be Elite podcast. It was a very amazing episode on the video games, our long-awaited episode. So make sure to follow us on YouTube and see you guys in 2 weeks for another recording.